I'm going to show you how I took this Intercession Kill Team from primed to tabletop ready, and I got a couple shortcuts in here too. First I'm going to do is take these cheap dry brushes that I picked up off of Amazon. They're not too bad for doing this job. So I've got McCrag Blue, and I've got an overbrush technique, so I'm leaving a little bit more of the paint on the brush as I do this process, leaving the paint on as best I can. I do have to switch to a little bit smaller brush to pick up some of the details that are in a little bit closer to the model. So after I get it all base coated and ready to go, pretty much it's all shaded and pretty much just needs details at this point. So from here, I'm going to switch over to lead belcher, and I'm going to pick out all the silver details. I'm going to paint the gun casings and the little vents on his backpack, his chain sword. Get those little silver details all picked out as kind of a base coat. I am going to go back over on the bolt pistol and the chain sword here. All right, moving on to the next section, I'm taking Black Templar and I'm hitting all the under armor, the underbody armor, and the pouches and the gun holster, going over the gun casings and the chain, the sword casings here as well. Getting all the black details base coated with a nice black color. Could end up using Black Legion here as well. Just depends on how much of the underpaint you want to kind of come through. The Black Templar, I let a little bit more of that come through compared to the Black Legion. All right, here we're gonna grab the Mephiston Red really quick for my sergeant. He's got his helmet kind of on his belt, so we've got to pick that out with this red color. Be very careful about picking out like just half of the tilting shield. I use the little studs. There's two studs, one at the top and the bottom. I use those as a marker and was just really careful about staying on one side of that tilting shield. I can always go back and touch up later. So I'm going to go in with Retributer armor here. Got a lot of gold details on these Ultramarines. Got the chest eagle. I've got his shoulder trim. The hilt of his chain sword also gets a little gold on it as well. You can pick out any other details that the sergeant might have, or some of your other models might have little jewels or little trinkets hanging off their belts. That's just a personal preference. From here, we're going to switch over to Wraithbone, and with the Wraithbone, I'm going to pick out his lenses. There are lenses on their helmets, and also the Purity Seal, if any, are hanging off any of the models on these guys. From there, I went in with some Vallejo Magenta and picked out the Purity Seal, and then I'm going to grab the Sergeant really quick while I'm in the process. I'm going to use Bugman's Glow and paint all his flesh, his skin tones. This is a personal preference, what kind of skin tone you want your characters to have, your models to have. I have this Pro Acryl White Blue, which is a great color. The Pro Acryl lighter white colors are all great. So here, picking out those eye lenses again, just kind of brightening them up a little bit more, so that Wraithbone gave it a nice base to go off of. And with the white blue, I'm also going to paint the other half of the tilting shield. Just give it a little contrast from the blue armor. Being very careful to not get back over on the red that I spent so much time painting before. And that's personal preference here. You can go back with just some plain white. I use the white blue as a base underneath the white that I'll go over later. And then the last thing I have on the Sergeant is he's got a plasma pistol. So I've got to pick out that where the glow is going to end up going. But we need a nice base coat for it to go onto as well. And this white blue, it's going to be stained with a darker blue or a bright blue later. That'll stand out for that plasma glow. And then hit the purity seal with Seraphim Sepia really quick here. And then onto Guilliman Flesh, where we're going to pick out the flesh tones, but then also, besides the flesh, Guilliman Flesh, like Reikland Flesh Shade, makes a great adding depth to this gold trim, this gold armor, picking out all those details, giving it a wash, and give it depth, warmth, just give it a little bit more of a pop than just that bright gold color. So from here, we're going back with the Bugman's Glow. I'm kind of doing a light brush over on his flesh, his skin, to lighten it back up from the Guilliman's Flesh. And then coming in with Nuln Oil, I'm going to paint over all of the silver and black bits here. Basically just adding some shade to that silver, adding some depth to it as well. And I'm getting ball red contrast paint to just paint the lenses on the blue helmets. And then Frost Heart contrast paint is a great contrast color to give that kind of plasma glow look. And then I've got neutral gray, which is kind of like Citadel's Dawnstone. What I'm doing here is I'm kind of picking out little highlights, little edges on all the black bits to give it a little bit of an edge highlight so that it has some contrast. And then from there, we're going to switch over to basing the model. I'm just using Astrogranite from Citadel's texture paint line and using their texture basing tool to put the texture down on the base. Trying to be careful here to not get any of that Astrogranite, any of that texture onto the armor that I've already spent so much time painting. And then I'm going to give you a tip number 2 or shortcut number 2. You can use this real tiny dry brush that came with these dry brushes that I picked up off Amazon. Just kind of hitting the edges, giving it that edge highlight look without spending a lot of time edge highlighting. Trying to be careful also to not hit any of the silver or metallic parts that I already painted. Here I'm just washing the Astrogranite with Agrax Earthshade, and then I'm going to get an old, ugly, cheap makeup dry brush and use a light neutral gray, kind of like a gray sear, to give that texture, that base, a little bit more highlight. So for the transfers, I'm base coating in Ard Coat. Just gives the model a nice surface to put those transfers onto. I'd heard that splitting the transfers can be helpful and wrapping around the curve of the shoulder pads. So that's what I'm doing here. Just splitting them in half. And I'm going to flood those transfers in water and then use a clean, old, cheap paintbrush to apply those transfers. And then I go in with some white paint and cover up any cuts or splits. And then going in with Lamia Medium to seal and give a matte coat over those transfers. After this, you can see how they turned out. So if you made it to this far in the video, I want to say thank you for joining me on this journey. I hope to have more content like this in the future. So please like and subscribe, hit that notification bell so you know when I post my next video.